Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So Republicans a few months ago overtook Democrats for the first time in a long time in Florida's party registration. First time in maybe ever. And now Republicans have an advantage over Democrats in Florida by over 100,000 registered voters. Now, Republicans have been winning Florida in the past. It's usually been like a toss-up state, but technically goes Republican a little bit more than it goes Democrat, although it's also important to note that the independents typically lean right. However, more and more people are becoming Republican, and they are outpacing Democrats significantly, and they have registered a net gain of the Democrats of over 363,000 voters since 2018. So we're going to dive into this and explain why Florida is becoming a solid red state and why it likely will stay in the Republican column for the foreseeable future. But first, I have to tell you guys about our good friends over at My Patriot Supply. Friends, we're facing more threats than ever before. When our leaders warn of global food shortages, including right here in the U.S. with this president, it's time to act. So go to preparewithredeagle.com and get your long-term emergency food storage from My Patriot Supply while you can. We don't know when more empty shelves will hit, so now is the best time to act. My Patriot Supply is by far the #1 preparedness company to rely on, with millions of satisfied customers this past year. Act quickly and save $150 on a vital 3-month emergency food kit, including breakfast, lunches, dinner, drinks, and snacks, totaling over 2,000 calories a day. Every family in America should have at least one 3-month supply of food per person, and now you can. Go to preparewithredeagle.com and save $150 on your 3-month food kits. That's preparewithredeagle.com. Don't wait any longer. Once again, preparewithredeagle.com. So Florida, a lot of registrations happening there lately, and Republicans are gaining massively. Many people are attributing this to Governor Ron DeSantis. Many people are very excited to get out there and vote for Ron DeSantis' re-election campaign. Although it's important to note that this has been a trend that has been happening for a long time. It is also being accelerated right now under the reigns of Ron DeSantis. And you're seeing this here. Democrats in 2008, when Obama won the state by a couple points, had over 700,000 registered voters on the Republicans. That went to 500,000 when Obama narrowly won the state by like 70,000 votes in 2012. 2016, when Trump narrowly won the state by like 100,000, Democrats had a 300,000 advantage. And in 2020, when Donald Trump won the state by 3.5, you saw the fact that Democrats have an advantage of 140,000, and the independents are increasing too. It's not just like independents are switching over and becoming Republican. There's a lot of new voters that are all Democrat, Republican, and independent, and a lot of the independent voters tend in Florida to skew right, and Ron DeSantis has a very high approval rating among them. And you look at the midterms in Florida, there is the Senate race, Marco Rubio. He's probably going to win by the same margin as DeSantis. He's an electoral juggernaut, not the biggest fan of him. He is establishmentarian, but he is likely going to win the primary. He doesn't really have much opposition there. And Ron DeSantis, on the other hand, is defeating Nikki Fried, who is psychotic, by 13 points in the aggregate. One poll had DeSantis up by 23%, and he's also defeating Charlie Crist, who was the former governor of Florida as a rhino Republican. He's defeating him by 9. I think that the race with Crist versus DeSantis could be within 10, but probably not much closer. And then you have DeSantis. He will wipe the floor with Nikki Fried. It should not even be close, but Crist does seem to have the leg up on the nomination so far. And this is happening. Ron DeSantis is one of the most conservative governors in the entire country, but also at the same time, he's in a swing state, even though the swing state is moving right, and he is popular. And he is somebody who in 2018, a lot of these, even electability, like neocon types were saying, no, this guy is, he's too pro-Trump, he's too Trumpian, he's got, ads where his kids are like playing with the Trump wall, and they whole like monkey this up comment that they like bought the leftist narrative, taking the comment out of context. and said he was not going to win, and the polls showed that DeSantis was going to lose by like 5, and he ended up winning. It was a very close election, a little bit too close for comfort. Should have won it by more than that, especially because Florida tends to be immune to midterm waves. But either way, he won, and it was a very crucial win because as a result, Florida is moving further and further to the right as a state. And this is so true. And we look at 2020, by the way, and you look at 2020, just the election map here. Counties flip blue in Florida, a couple of them, but Miami moved so far to the right, and the counties north of Miami, including like Broward, moved 5 points to the right, and throughout the state, all of these counties, many counties in the Panhandle as well, moved to the right to the point where the state moved to the right by several points. And you look at this, and a lot of these counties up here, by the way, in the Panhandle, like these counties that are like 75, 80% Republican now, back in the Obama years and before that, they were like in the 50s, 60s. Now they're up to the 70s and 80s because of the large white working class population there that came out heavily for Trump, more so than ever. The turnout skyrocketed after 2012 ahead of 2016, and we saw that, and we saw it again in 2020 in the state, but also downstate. I mean, this is the map of Miami-Dade County, basically, and Miami-Dade County did go blue, but it went blue by 7. Hillary won the county by like 30, and you look at the change from 2016, all of these neighborhoods, these Cuban neighborhoods in Hialeah, I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce that city there, but just the entire city as a whole, it wasn't just Cubans, it was also Puerto Ricans, white working class voters in Miami, etc. And you saw this massive shift there. And the reason why a lot of these Cubans and Central and South Americans moved to the right in 2020 was because Trump capitalized on the Democrats and their reckless spending plans and policy proposals that they proposed in the primaries. Kamala Harris was talking about in the primaries. She was open to universal, quote-unquote, universal single-payer health care, and that didn't bode well with them. I mean, they are from Cuba. They understand how these policies work, and, well, one may argue that Trump was a little bit too infatuated with the whole socialism thing, and that might have held him back in, like, the rural Midwest or whatever, because he should have spent more time attacking globalism, and while that is true, attacking it a little bit is important for South Florida, and as you can see here, South Florida did what it did, and it moved vastly to the right, and with Democrats spending speaking for itself right now is the time to talk more about globalism, and you could still hold these trends, and hopefully the trends will continue. But as you see it, Ron DeSantis is partially going to be responsible for the state at the state level for the long-term trend of Florida. As a result, you can see this here. Where did Americans move in 2020? Florida was in the top 10 states, and it was even higher, I believe, than number 9 in 2021. You look at states like New York, where people are leaving. They're leaving the liberal Northeast, they're leaving California, they're leaving in some places in the Midwest. A lot of old people are, and a lot of these people may be from blue states, but a lot of them are conservative, and they are moving to a conservative state like Florida. They're moving to Texas. They're moving to Arizona, even though Arizona's new arrivals might be a little bit more liberal compared to Florida's, but either way, we see a lot of people, a lot of conservatives moving to places in the South. And Florida is one of those places. Ron DeSantis, as a governor, made the state more appealing by keeping it open more so than a lot of other, even Republican governors did, which was very important. And he's also making sure that the state stays red for as long as possible by wielding power, which is something that a lot of conservatives are just too afraid to do. Now, it's easier to do at the state level than a lot of people think, but there's just so many governors that are just weak and compromised. And even some of the other well-known conservative governors on the right. Obviously, you see Greg Abbott in Texas. He only signed bills into law when he needed to win. And up in South Dakota, Kristi Noem, remember the whole transgender bill? She only signed it when she needed to because she had a primary challenger. That's why they do these things. But Ron DeSantis, he just did it all anyways. And that's important. He's received a lot of hate, and a lot of people are seething. A lot of people are angry. Look at this guy. He says Ron DeSantis will be meeting Gen Z in November, and I promise he won't like us. Bruh, this guy. First of all, we're the Zoomers. We're not Gen Z. Gen Z is a terminology that a lot of liberals use. It's not an accurate way, in my opinion, of describing Generation Z. We are the Zoomers. And he says that DeSantis won't be liked by the Gen Z voters. But the Gen Z voters that probably show up are going to narrowly back DeSantis. I mean, Trump got in the mid 40s of Gen Z voters in Florida in 2020. and DeSantis is more popular at the state level, and the state is moving vastly to the right, and because the energy factor's on the right, the Zoomers that show up are probably going to show up for the guy that kept their state open, because a lot of Zoomers, I feel like, besides the super establishmentarian Zoomers, they supported reopening. They oppose these restrictions that we saw, and like I said, I wouldn't really be shocked if DeSantis wins the Zoomers that show up outright. But that's beside the point. We keep seeing more and more controversy surrounding DeSantis. I want to touch on this a little bit as well, where you saw this whole don't say gay bill. DeSantis signed this bill into law. It didn't go far enough, and you could blame the Florida state legislature for that, by the way. But he signed this bill into law that prevented kids from, I believe, grades 3 and below from learning about sex, which I don't think it went far enough. You probably shouldn't be teaching that in schools, period. But it's absolutely disgusting that this bill had any opposition at all to begin with, because it's such a common sense bill. And now you have people that say that they might want to boycott the state of Florida, these liberals that are boycotting the state of Florida because of this bill, because they don't want to groom children, basically. Good. Boycott it. That's going to keep the state red. I mean, we see boycotts all the time. We saw it in Georgia, but now we're seeing it potentially in Florida, and as more legislation happens, you're going to see more of it. More liberal industry is going to leave Florida. They're probably going to go back to California, or maybe a liberal state like in the Pacific Northwest where the taxes might be lower than Florida, and they're going to be there instead. But as a result, there's no reason why anybody should oppose this bill. And stop calling it, if you're a conservative, don't even call it the Don't Say Gay bill. Like, I know that's what it's called, but like the bill doesn't even mention that. They're going to frame it as such, but it doesn't exactly matter. Just call it the Don't Groom Kids bill. That's the better terminology to use. But even so, I don't think the bill really goes far enough, but that's beside the point. The bottom line is that Florida is becoming a more appealing place to live for a lot of people. It's not exactly the state that like I would want to move to. Like, you could argue it's like a tourist trap. Like, I've been to Tampa once and I've been to Orlando once. I really didn't like either city. I know some people like northern Florida, rural Florida better, but I really haven't been there, so I really wouldn't know. But either way, what I will say is the state is becoming more appealing to a lot of people, especially as you have an executive who is wielding power to really crack down on a lot of this leftism that permeates through a lot of the blue states that we see. You saw the anti-riot bill that he passed. There's a lot of bills that he passed that were fairly solid, and arguably you could argue that some of the bills don't go far enough, like this bill or like the E-Verify, but either way, the state is becoming more appealing to a lot of people. I mean, look at the election system. They counted all the votes in one night. Like, what other state did that? I can't think of one that did, but Florida did. And as a result, Florida was not really talked about very much in the post-election cycle, besides people praising Florida for the open and transparent process that we saw. But like I said, Florida's going to stay a red state. You look at the registration numbers over time, they're only getting better. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you look at the trends by 2024 if Republicans have like a 400,000, 500,000 voter lead over the Democrats. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Please like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.